Okay, good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
I am Clarissa Rodriguez, Chair of the New York State Workers' Compensation Board, and I now have the pleasure of calling the 974th meeting of the board to order. The board secretary had a family matter to attend to today. Representing the office of the secretary is Administrative Assistant Virginia Cawthorn. Ginny, will you please call attendance?
Vice Chair Foster.
Here.
Board Member Pepperoni.
Here.
Board Member Higgins.
Here.
Board Member Logan.
Here.
Board Member Williams.
Here.
Board Member Hull.
Here.
Board Member Ossoly.
Here.
Board Member Crane.
Here.
Board Member Stasko.
Here.
Board Member Lavelle.
Here.
All members are present.
Okay, thank you. First order of business, approval of the January 15, 2019 minutes. You have all received a copy of the meeting minutes to review. Are there any questions or need for discussion?
Move to approve.
Thank
Second.
you. Second, thank you very much. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? I am also a yes, that motion is passed. Thank you. Agenda item number 2, Office of General Counsel's Departmental Report. General Counsel David Wertheim will now present the statistical and informational report for January.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, board members, and
Good morning.
guests. Here is a statistical review of the January 2019 issue resolution workflow for the board. First, in the adjudication division, there were 20,673 hearings held, 12,860 cases fully resolved at hearing, with 508 reserved decisions issued. There were 1,684 Section 32 waiver agreements approved, 1,633 through the hearing process, and 351 by desk. In the Administrative Review Division, there were 1,021 applications received, 1,311 were processed, leaving an inventory of 3,544, with 93% of review applications processed in less than 6 months. In terms of full board review, there were 195 applications received and 195 applications processed, leaving a full board review case inventory of 344. That concludes my report. Of course, I would take any questions. Thank you.
Okay. Are there any questions or need for discussion? May I have a motion to
Motion to
accept the
accept.
report? Thank you.
Second.
Second, thank you so much. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? I'm also a yes, that motion is passed. Thank you. Agenda item number 3, licensing applications. Elizabeth Lott of the Office of General Counsel will now present any licensing applications.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair, Vice
morning.
Chair, board
morning.
members, guests, colleagues. You have before you the recommendation listed in Part 3 of today's agenda from the assigned board panel regarding the license application for Domenica Gucciardo pursuant to Workers' Compensation Law Section 24A. The board panel recommends a 1-year renewal. This recommendation is submitted to the full board for your decision.
Okay. Are there any questions or need for discussion? May I have a motion to accept the report?
Move to accept.
Okay, second, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? I am also a yes, that motion is passed. Thank you. Agenda item number 4, legal appeals. General Counsel David Wertheim will now present the recommendations concerning decisions by the Appellate Division.
Thank you again, Chair. From the time of the last board meeting, the Appellate Division 3rd Department issued 8 decisions with respect to workers' compensation claims. Of those decisions, 7 were affirmed, 1 was modified. It's a recommendation of General Counsel that all of the decisions of the court be adopted as the decisions of the board.
Okay, may I have a motion to accept the recommendations of the
Motion to
Office of
accept.
General Counsel? Thank you.
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? I am also a yes, that motion is passed. Thank you. Agenda item number 5, mandatory full board review. The first matter is 5A, Suffolk County Police Department, case number G1535778. Is there a motion with respect to 5A on the agenda?
Yes, Madam Chair, I would move that the opinion of the majority be adopted as the opinion of the full board.
Is there a second? Thank you. Are there any recusals from this matter? Is there any opposition to the motion? Okay, seeing and hearing no opposition, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? I'm also a yes, that motion is passed. Thank you. 5B, General Bearing Corporation, case number G165 3737. Is there a motion with respect to 5B on the agenda?
Yes, Madam Chair. I propose that the majority opinion be adopted as the opinion of the full board.
Is there a second? Thank you. Are there any recusals from this matter? Is there any opposition to the motion?
Yes.
Okay. In light of the opposition, I call upon the secretary for a roll call vote.
Board Member Hall.
Yes.
Board Member Stasko.
Yes.
Board Member Crane.
Yes.
Board Member Osling.
Yes.
Board Member Lavelt.
No.
Board Member Logan.
Yes.
Board Member Higgins.
Yes.
Board Member Paprocki.
Yes.
Board Member Williams.
Yes.
Vice Chair Foster.
Yes.
Chair Rodriguez.
Yes.
That motion is carried 10-1.
Thank you. 5C, Onondaga Community College, case number G0140294 has been moved from the agenda. 5D, Beacon Central School District, case number 59909311. Is there a motion with respect to 5D on the agenda?
Yes, Madam Chair. I move that the board panel decision as modified be adopted as the opinion of the full board.
Is there a second?
Second.
Are there any recusals in this matter? Is there any opposition to the motion? Okay. Seeing and hearing no opposition, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? I am also a yes, that motion is passed. Thank you. 5E, Burtis Construction Incorporated, case number G0805212. Is there a motion with respect to 5E on the agenda?
Yes, Madam Chair, I would move that the dissent as modified be adopted as the opinion of the board.
Is there a second?
Second.
Are there any recusals in this matter? Is there any opposition to the motion?
Yes.
Okay. In light of the opposition, I call upon the secretary for a roll call vote.
Board Member Lavelt.
No.
Board Member Stasko.
Yes.
Board Member Osling.
Yes.
Board Member Hull.
Yes.
Board Member Crane.
Yes.
Board Member Paprocki.
Yes.
Board Member Logan.
Yes.
Board Member Higgins.
Yes.
Board Member Williams.
No.
Vice Chair Foster.
Yes.
Chair Rodriguez.
Yes.
That motion is carried 9-2.
Okay, thank you. 5F, USIS Audiovisual Incorporated, case number G1469431. Is there a motion with respect to 5F on the agenda?
Yes, Madam Chair, I move that the opinion of the majority be adopted as the opinion of the full board.
Second.
Is there a second? Thank you. Are there any recusals from this matter? Is there any opposition to the motion? Okay. Seeing no opposition, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? I'm also a yes, that motion is passed. Thank you. 5G, Verizon New York Incorporated, case number G1512844. Is there a motion with respect to 5G on the agenda?
Yes, Madam Chair, I move that neither the majority nor dissent be adopted, that a new decision will be issued on scheduled lawsuits.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Are there any recusals? Is there any opposition to the motion?
Yes.
In light of the opposition, I call upon the secretary for a roll call vote.
Board Member Lavelt.
Yes.
Board Member Stasko.
No.
Board Member Higgins.
Yes.
Board Member Hull.
Yes.
Board Member Osling.
No.
Board Member Logan.
Yes.
Board Member Crane.
Yes.
Board Member Paprocki.
No.
Board Member Williams.
Yes.
Vice Chair Foster.
Yes.
Chair Rodriguez.
Yes.
Motion is carried 8-3.
Okay, thank you. 5H, Nassau Extended Care Facility, case number G1373617. Is there a motion with respect to 5H on the agenda?
Yes, Madam Chair, I would move that the majority opinion be adopted as the opinion of the full board.
Is there a second?
Second.
Are there any recusals from this matter? Is there any opposition to the motion?
Yes.
Okay. In light of the opposition, I call upon the secretary for a roll call vote.
Board Member Crane.
Yes.
Board Member Williams.
No.
Board Member Osling.
Yes.
Board Member Stasko.
Yes.
Board Member Higgins.
Yes.
Board Member Hull.
Yes.
Board Member Logan.
Yes.
Board Member Paprocki.
Yes.
Board Member LaBelle.
No.
Vice Chair Foster.
Yes.
Chair Rodriguez.
Yes.
Motion is carried 9-2.
Okay, thank you. 5I, New York City Housing Authority, case number G0515787. Is there a motion with respect to 5I on the agenda?
Yes, Madam Chair, I move that the board panel decision be adopted as the opinion of the full board.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any recusals? Is there any opposition to the motion? Okay, seeing no opposition, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? I'm also a yes, that motion is passed. Thank you. Agenda item number 6, discretionary full board review. I now turn this portion over of the agenda to Vice Chair Foster.
Thank you. For the cases listed in Section 6 on your agenda, the recommendation is that full board review be granted. Those cases are 6A, matter of New York City Transit Authority, and 6B, matter of Broome Tiago Bosis. I move to refer the cases back to the respective panels for further consideration.
Thank you. Are there any recusals? Is there any opposition to the motion? Okay, seeing no opposition, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? I am also a yes, that motion is passed.
Thank you.
Thank you. Other business? Is there any other business to discuss? Okay. So, agenda item number 8, guest speakers. Our guest speakers today is someone we've had the pleasure of hosting previously, Workers' Compensation Inspector General Catherine Leahy Scott, who is here to give us her office's annual report and also introduce us to Inspector General Leticia Tagliaferro. All right. Tagliaferro. As a quick reference, the Office of Inspector General's mission is to detect, investigate, deter, and eliminate corruption, fraud, criminal activity, conflicts of interest, abuses of office, and waste in the state, entities under her jurisdiction. The IG's office has an authority over 200 state agencies, authorities, boards, and commissions covering more than 200,000 state employees working in the executive branch of state government. Welcome once again, and we're so glad to have you all with us here today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
course.
As I was coming up the elevator with Mary Beth, I had said, it is unbelievable to me that a year goes by and how quickly that year goes by, that I'm measuring my life in terms of when I appeared before the board. But it's always a pleasure to be here. This is my 4th presentation before the board. And what I did today, and inclusive in, and we have the annual report, which we will be passing out at the conclusion of my remarks. But I've abbreviated my remarks today. You know, the joke is I abbreviated it, so I have to stop talking, right? Because I'm cognizant of the weather that's coming in and that you all have to travel far. So I'll try to make this brief, but certainly responsive to whatever questions or needs that you have. In the past, in our report, you'll notice that we did a recitation of all the cases that were arrested and prosecuted during the course of the year. And in 2018, we did have a number of those cases. But instead, what I did is I abbreviated the report because we have such great communication with the board. We constantly let you know when there's arrest or something significant, a plea or a sentencing that is taking place in our various court system. So I just gave some examples of those cases, but always refer you with that if you need to know more information, it's on our website. So if you need to really go and look at those cases, it's on the website. And I'm going to do the same today in our presentation. It's just to mention one provider case that we had and one claimant case and one employer case. So my office, as you know, we have offices all throughout the state. We have the Western Regional offices in Buffalo, our Upstate Regional office is in Albany. Just as a reminder, our Downstate Regional office is in Manhattan. We have some satellite offices, Hauppauge on the east end of Long Island. There's an office in Suffern, which addresses our Hudson Valley region, and Syracuse as well, which is central New York and serves, you know, as far north as the Watertown and down to our southern tier. So we really have our bases covered around the state. And as you are aware, there are 3 aspects to the offices of the Inspector General. There's the State Inspector General, there's the Welfare Inspector General, and the Workers' Comp Fraud Inspector General. Last Monday, February 4th, the governor has appointed a new State Inspector General, and that Inspector General is Letizia Tagliafiero, who is here with us today, and certainly can address the board at the conclusion of these remarks. I am still currently the acting Welfare Inspector General and the Workers' Comp Fraud Inspector General, so you're still stuck with me. But anyway, so again, that is our offices, and to the extent that you don't know the other 2 folks sitting with us here, Spencer Friedman is our executive deputy amongst all the offices, and Audrey Maiello Cunningham, who is the Deputy Inspector General in charge of our Workers' Comp Fraud Initiative throughout the state of New York, and is just absolutely stellar in everything that she does. So anyway, again, as a review, and as you know, I don't know why our attorneys are over on our I guess we did our graphics poorly, so we apologize, but we're an attorney-led office. And what that means, God bless you, what that means, an attorney-led office is that every case that comes into our office, we have a lead attorney that runs that case, and then we have a team of investigators, auditors, data analytics people, and other digital computer forensic folks that are put on the team for the purposes of investigating that particular case. Depending on how large the case is, we could have more than one person. And also we have found, particularly in the year of 2018, that the mission, the philosophy of having the 3 fraud investigative units together under one house has really provided these better cases in which we're not only investigating workers' comp fraud, but it's also in the welfare delivery system, workers' compensation fraud that involves state employees and state agencies. So we would have investigators and investigative counsels that work together on those teams to make for better cases. The next slide. Just something new. As you know, we receive all complaints central into Albany, our upstate regional office. We review every complaint that comes into our office. Every week we sit down and we have our senior and executive management that reviews every case, including all of us that are sitting here. But we added something addition in 2018 that has proved tremendously helpful to us, especially in the workers' comp fraud realm. We developed a workers' compensation fraud triage team. Because our complaint and allegation numbers are up significantly, that we have actually put together our assistant inspector general, who works directly under Audrey Patricia Hoover, is in charge of this team, and we have 4 or 5 investigators, including a nurse investigator, that looks at these cases when they first come into the office, so we can initially figure out, is it within our jurisdiction? Is it a matter that we should be investigating? Is it something that we should be referring out to one of our partners to, again, address the workers' comp fraud complaints and allegations and move them quickly? And you will see soon, because the numbers are really starting to come into our office, that it was necessary to do this triage team. It has proven so highly successful. I thank Audrey and Pat for listening to this idea I had about putting a triage team together and moving these cases forward. So that's a significant initiative that we started in 2018. So the sources of our referrals, just as it is in every year, New York State employees, our agencies and authorities, the members of the public, our law enforcement agencies, insurance carriers, third-party administrators, municipalities, the board, of course, our administrative law judges, entities that do business with the state of New York. And then we also do proactive initiatives, which we'll talk about in a little bit, that overseeing all of the workers' comp fraud that we see in the state of New York. It's always a concern of mine as to what is the best utilization of our resources in the office to impact fraud and combat fraud in the state of New York. So we look at what we see in trends in our office from the data that's coming in, and then we address certain industries, if you will, and proactive initiatives to combat fraud. So 2018, we had 1,801 complaints that came in the year 2018. We had 34 arrests and over $9 million in fraud. So it occurs to me, since I've been doing this for 4 years, that maybe it would be helpful for you to see the comparison of the last 4 years. So in 2015, when I first took over, which was in March of 2015, you see the numbers of the number of complaints, the arrests, and the restitution. 2016, we were up significantly, and Audrey and I engaged in significant outreach and training throughout the state and our stakeholders. So we had 1,556 and 28 arrests. 2017 was a little bit of an anomaly, and I'll explain to you in a second, because we had 1,543 complaints that came in, but I just want to remind you in my remarks to you last year, we have an organization called the National Insurance Crime Bureau Board, and we partnered with them, and they started giving us a number of complaints that were truly astronomical, quite frankly. And in 2017, we had 2 significant groups of complaints that came into our office that amounted to 826 that were literally dropped into our office in 2017. So we had to go through those 826, and then moving forward, we started to get these complaints coming in a much better manner and a more consistent manner that we probably get somewhere between like 20 and 30, 35 on a monthly basis. But initially, when we were in discussions with NICB, we did have over $800 that were dropped on us at one time. Hence my idea of, we should do a triage unit, right? So it kind of all makes sense. So that number last year, you'll see in the report, was a number of 2,369, but that's because if you backed out the 800 and change that they had sent to us in 2 sittings, if you will, the real number was 1,543 for the year. So then this year, now that I think that we're normalizing, we're getting these NICB complaints in, the complaints from everybody else, we had 1,800 complaints this past year. And I think that moving forward next year, we'll start seeing that number. But I will tell you, I mean, if you look at the numbers, we are jumping significantly, 15, 20%, which is why it became very important to put this triage team together and really start looking at these cases. And also to really, from my viewpoint, as well as the executive staff, to utilize our resources in the best manner possible. So this year, we had 17 claimant fraud arrests. We had 15 employer fraud arrests, which, by the way, is up from the previous year, 2017, we did 10. So this year, we're up 15, and I'll explain to you why in a minute. And then we had 2 provider or professional fraud arrests. We said 2, but we had one case that we talked about last year, which was the Dr. Shankman case that, if you recall, was out in the western region of the United States, of New York State. So what happened was it got reported in 2017, but he actually pled in 2018. So we didn't take the number in 2018 because we reported it to you in 2017. So just wanted to explain that to you. Our partnerships around the state, we couldn't do what we do without our partnerships, quite frankly. We have about 30 full-time equivalent employees, but as you know, and I've told you before, we've cross-designated everybody in the IG's office to do any case, especially when it's all hands on deck are needed. So our partnerships outside of our office become very important. I mean, our prosecutors are very important because they're the folks that, I make a point of visiting all our prosecutors throughout the state of New York. This past year, there was a few changeovers in 2018 because of elections, and I went out and met the new DAs so they understand who we are, what we do, and that when we bring a case to them, they understand. So our partnerships with the prosecutors are extremely important. DFS, we work closely with DFS and obviously the New York State Insurance Fund, the Department of Labor. We have our FBI Healthcare Task Force, NICB, which I've already spoken to you about. We have a great partnership with them. Tax is great on all sides of our house. It's what I always joke about, the Al Capone, right, where I can't get you on fraud, but I'm going to get you on the tax, right, because I turn it over to our tax friends. But having that kind of partnership is very important. Insurance carriers, and one group that I've left off, which we should probably put on, Audrey, is our law enforcement partners, because we couldn't do what we do without the help of New York State Police and our local sheriffs and the like. Particularly New York State Police, they assist us in a lot of our investigations and particularly arrests when we make arrests. So those are our partnerships. So getting to the actual cases, I'm going to present 2 cases to you quickly. One having to do with provider fraud, and the second one, the one case encompasses both claimant and employer fraud, and it's a great case. I love it. So, all right, so the identity doctor case. So we had, this was a long-term investigation that finally came to fruition in 2018, where we had a physician that was involved in defrauding Medicaid, state insurance funds, numerous private health insurance companies, because he lied about surgical procedures that he was performing. So he he lost his license, he pled guilty to these crimes, he paid $250,000 in fines, and he was ordered to pay $5 million in restitution. Now, one would think that would be the end of the story for this dirty doctor, right? Of course not. So what happens is, prior to going into federal prison, and when he gets out of federal prison, he engages in additional fraud. And the fraud is that he opens up a company and he assumes the identity of another licensed orthopedic surgeon, and he performs peer reviews for 6 companies that provide physicians to review patient medical files in connection with workers' comp claims. All right? He gets paid $860,000 for doing these peer reviews. He is, before going to prison, like while he's in prison, and then certainly when he gets out of prison, he's engaged in this kind of fraud.
How did you find out?
Right. So it was reported into us, right?
Yes.
The feds, from the federal
We
departments.
had an initial complaint from the doctor whose identity
Was stolen.
Yeah.
He found
Had
out
to
that
do
he
it.
should have gotten $860,000. Right, that's what happened. So anyway, so I went through this already. So he performed the peer reviews for 6 companies. Payments from, and of course now we have to put this case together. And how do you follow it? You follow the, in our line of work, you follow the money, right? So if you follow the money and where they were getting paid, we traced the doctor's bank account, which was in the name of a company that he had put together. We find out the company is actually a shell for him, so that's how we find out that he's engaged in this kind of fraud. Now, this case is still pending in the U.S. Attorney's Office, Southern District, down in Manhattan. He is indicted on wire fraud, healthcare fraud, and aggravated identity theft. This is, again, currently pending, so he is presumed innocent until proven guilty. So this is a case that we are actively engaged and working on, and hopefully will come to conclusion at some point in 2019. Our next case, also very interesting, we call Joyride in our office, which will be understood in a second. This is a husband and wife fraudulent team, and they did plead guilty. So we can talk about it in the fact that these are 2 fraudsters. So we received this complaint from Special Investigations Unit of an insurance carrier. And it's both, comes in as a claimant fraud, but that during the course of the investigation we find out it's also employer fraud because it's a husband and wife team that's married. The husband owns an automotive window tinting business and the wife is employed at the business, right? She gets involved in a 1-car motor vehicle accident driving a Mercedes-Benz that belongs to a client who brought their car to the window tinting business for the purpose of having the windows tinted. So she sustains this accident. She claims that she is transporting the vehicle. There is no reason on this earth that this woman should have been in this car transporting it anywhere, right? It was brought to the business for the purposes of the window tinting. So the workers' compensation insurer bills for the medical treatment and the lost wages. And then the claim is the husband, who is the employer, he reviews the wife's claims, and we have all the documentation that we pull, and we're looking at them all, and he files documents supporting the claim. He submits, my favorite, the employer wage reimbursement requests, which are also, as you can well imagine, whitened out and increased because now she's making a lot of money all of a sudden. And again, I had said the wife, she had no reason, work-related reason for driving the vehicle. And interestingly, I'm on the next one because I talk fast. The interesting thing is the morning of the accident, the poor client who dropped the vehicle at the business had called and said, "Is my car ready? It's been a while," because the wife is driving it around. "Oh no, it's not ready." So they tell her that morning, "No, it's not ready." Okay, that's the car.
Oh my God.
Looks like the windows are tinted too, right?
Uh-huh.
So when she called that morning, the car was done. So anyway, that's powerful evidence when you put that in front of a defense team. Oh well, there you go. So the motor vehicle accident was obviously not related to any work. The injury, therefore, is not compensable. The employer husband, he files false documents in support of his wife's claims. He submits the wage reimbursement requests. He fabricates, as I said before, the wage statements. There's application and premium fraud. There's false statements in the application and the classification. The wife is charged with, she's charged with a litany of charges: grand larceny, insurance fraud, workers' comp 114, falsifying the business records. And the district attorney made us laugh because They wanted us to charge also the unauthorized use of a vehicle, which was just, you know, kind of like the cherry on top of all the charges. We're like, okay. She wound up pleading, this is in Rockland County, by the way. She wound up pleading to attempted fraudulent practices, which was an A misdemeanor. The husband, who is the employer, is charged with grand larceny, insurance fraud, the 114A fraudulent practices, and falsifying business records. He pleads to attempted grand larceny in the third degree, which is a felony. And it's an individual felony, because sometimes when you talk to prosecutors, they sometimes allow what's called a corporate plea versus an individual plea. But Rockland County District Attorney had an individual plea, so he pled guilty. Restitution, $30,000 was given in restitution to the insurance carrier. $11,500 was given to the owner of the Mercedes-Benz. And then $70,000 in restitution was given to the vehicle's corporate owner, for the increased insurance premiums due to the accident, which I thought was interesting, right? Okay. So that is a good illustration of both of our claimant case and an employer case that we have. Another thing before I move on to the outreach and training, and the reason why I looked at my watch, because 11:30 today, this is when at about 11:45 we call David and tell him something just happened. But 11:30 today, there is going to be, we're hoping that it goes forward, a plea in the U.S. Attorney's Office, U.S. courts in Northern District. We have gotten involved in the last 2 years, long-standing investigation having to do with the medical transportation companies in the state of New York. It is affecting our workers' comp system, it is affecting our welfare system, and it is also affecting our municipalities throughout the state who have to pay, the premiums on, Medicaid, Medicare, things of that nature. We were up in Essex County, and again, it was a 2-year investigation that involved the New York State Police, the FBI, the Essex County District Attorney's Office, as well as the U.S. Attorney's Office, Northern District. We issued and assisted on multiple search warrants that took place up in Essex County that implicated 11 companies that were doing business not only in the Adirondacks, but the Capital District region. And there was 13 individuals at the conclusion of those search warrants that were placed under arrest. And they were medical taxi and medical transportation companies. The theory of the investigation and the prosecution is that these taxi companies must carry workers' compensation insurance. And they must carry it, particularly if they're going to bill our Medicaid system and providing medical transportation to patients who are in need to be traveling someplace to a doctor or some treatment. We found that these crimes were including ghost rides, which they're claiming that there was transportation that occurred that never occurred, that they were bribing Medicaid patients, that there were kickbacks going on. Clearly there was no workers' compensation or appropriate insurance on any of these companies, and obviously a slew of filing of false documents. Again, against these 13 individuals, Essex County District Attorney, unfortunately, at the conclusion of this long-standing investigation, our DA, Christy Sprague, had to recuse herself, so Rensselaer County District Attorney's Office is now prosecuting the state claims. We have the U.S. Attorney in the Northern District that is prosecuting the federal claims. At 11:30 today, there is a plea that is to take place where one of the principals will be pleading guilty in federal court and then will be transported over to state court in Rensselaer County in order to plead to the state charges. This is really extremely successful and rewarding for us, because when you are engaged in these years-long investigations, and to see the final conclusion and the impact that we're having, this is the type of impact that we really want to have on our workers' comp system. Traveling the state in the district attorney's office and meeting putting my welfare hat on, the departments of social services, and meeting county executives and things of that nature, people of that nature, we find that the municipalities are now looking at us saying, could you come to our county, please? And so we have been engaged in going around to the various counties and sitting down and looking at their stats, if you will, where 5 years ago they paid X amount of dollars to our welfare system, and then 5 years later, current amounts that the counties are paying are exorbitant. And we're finding that medical transportation companies is an area that we're going to be concentrating on throughout the state, because the way we're combating it is we're looking at the workers' comp position first and then seeing what other fraud is being committed. So this is a ripe area that we're going to be looking at in 2019, and hopefully Audrey will be calling David a little later. So, our 2018 outreach and training, again, significant. I mean, you're all aware that, and my joke is, anybody willing to listen to me, I go talk to them. We continue that this past year. We continue because of state agencies that we have our state IG hat on. We go in and we talk to them about state IG matters, but we also talk to them about workers' comp fraud to make the state employees aware and the state workforce aware that we are looking at you in terms of workers' comp fraud. As a result of significant investigations we've had with the Department of Corrections and Community Supervision, we still continue to train on a monthly basis every new DOCS recruit that comes out of their academy. So we continue to do that monthly, and we have a team that shares that responsibility. Interesting, this year we've had some new stakeholders at the table that are interested in what we have to say, and that's in the construction industry. The state IG, we've had jurisdiction over the new New York Bridge project. There's $105 billion of construction that have been let throughout the state of New York. We always have a mindful eye on workers' compensation and companies that do business with the state of New York and whether they're carrying appropriate workers' compensation coverage. There are obviously contractors who want to remain competitive and receive some of these contracts in the state. So as a result, we partner with them because they can't be competitive against somebody who's not, if they're misclassifying or they have no insurance whatsoever. So we've addressed 2 additional groups, and we're starting to address these groups. In May, Audrey spoke to Niagara Frontier Building Officials Association. We talked to the Long Island Labor Advisory Council later in the year. We have been going around talking to municipalities and their building departments. They're very interested in what we have to say. I didn't put it on the PowerPoint presentation, but there's a lot of outreach that my regional offices and their chiefs and the investigators will go out and have conversations with building inspectors and code enforcement agencies, in an unofficial capacity, just to say, look, we're here, how can we help you? So this is another ripe area, and especially since we're getting formal requests to come and speak with them, is to look at our construction industry, so that's another area we'll be looking at. We also spoke to, it was interesting, the Injured Workers Bar Association, which was interesting because, that's basically the attorneys that represent our claimants. So we didn't want to give them the keys to the kingdom, but at the same time, we wanted to explain to them what we did and that they, as attorneys, have a fiduciary duty to ensure that there's not workers' compensation fraud as well. So that was an interesting group that we added to our outreach and training. And then lastly is our communication with you, the board, which of course we could not do what we do without your support, and I very much appreciate your support. We have, obviously, the press notifications was brought to our attention to make sure that you all know what's going on, to the extent that we can tell you what is going on, particularly with arrests, pleas, sentencing, sometimes with search warrants. For obvious reasons, we can't tell you ahead of time, but certainly we tell you after the fact, so you're aware. We have increased communication with the chair, and we started our quarterly meetings, which we'll be setting up another quarterly meeting soon, so we can have increased communication and make sure that whatever needs need to be met are met on both sides of the house, both from the board perspective and our perspective. We very much appreciate our executive director, Mary Beth, and our compliance team here. We work very closely with the compliance team. And lastly, and certainly not least, is your Office of General Counsel, David Wertheim, and his staff have just been stellar. And I will tell you also, as the former State Inspector General, I keep saying this, and David didn't pay me $20, so I will tell you that you have one of the best general counsels you have in the state, because he's just extremely responsive, not only in representing the board, but also assisting us in our endeavors and what we have to do. And we speak freely with David, we present issues to David, for the purposes of provider and administrative matters, we constantly keep David in the loop so he knows what's going on and he assists us. So we very much appreciate the Office of General Counsel. And so what are we going to do next year? Investigations, I think that I've outlined a few things where we're going to be looking at some industry-wide problems that we're starting to see. We obviously will continue the reactive investigations as they come into our office. Again, you've seen the numbers, they're trending up, so we will continue to do what we have to do and prioritize those matters and dedicate the resources where appropriate. We'll also continue our outreach and our training. We already have 2 requests on the books, and we have like 6 more pending that we have to finalize. So we will continue that outreach and training. And if you are aware or know anybody that needs to hear from us, please let us know, because we'll certainly make ourselves available. And communication is the key in terms of everything we do here. In terms of additional training we have on the books for 2019, we are going to train the Workers' Comp Board investigators, so that's going to happen in short order. And I know that David and Audrey are probably tired of listening to me about physician training, but we're going to do it in 2019, so that's going to get done. And that's what's really on the books for us for 2019. So again, we could not do this without your support, and we really appreciate everything. So thank you.
Okay. The departmental report by Michael Papa will be postponed to another month, given the inclement weather. So last order of business, may I please have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Motion to adjourn.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? I am also a yes. That motion is passed. Thank you, everyone, and get home safely.